In this video, we're going to take a look at Critical Response Paper 4. So in this one, I want to sort of explore one of the questions that it's always struck me about this play is what makes the sisters in the play so different? That is, Cordelia from her other two sisters, and really, to some extent, the two of them different from each other, although I think for the purposes of this paper, we're going to consider Regan and Goneril as a team, as a duo. I want you to respond to these ideas from the British critic Harold C. Goddard. Goddard now is writing in the 1950s when I think questions of force and authority and authoritarianism have a different resonance maybe than they do today. So in that regard, I want you to think in terms of testing his theory more than anything else. So Goddard recognized a pattern in Shakespeare's tragedies in which, as he put it, quote, bowing the knee to force or authority as embodied in the father, unquote, nearly always results in a character's, what Goddard refers to as a spiritual disaster, while a refusal to obey the father in the same sense nearly always results in a character's spiritual triumph. Now, if we are going to apply the term spiritual triumph to anyone in this play, it is probably Cordelia. There may be several candidates for spiritual disaster, but in this context, the two that have a father would be Goneril and Regan. So Goddard goes on to write, in all of Shakespeare's works, there is nothing that goes deeper than this distinction, I believe, in its bearing on the salvation of humanity from force, nothing that proves more convincingly the necessity of regarding his works as a whole. Here, in play after play, it is intimated that the redemption of man from violence must come from woman, not from women alone, but from the generic woman who, whether expressed or hidden, is an integral part of both sexes. All of this comes from page 137 of Goddard's book, The Meaning of Shakespeare, Volume 2, published in 1951. That tells you something about the nerve of H.C. Goddard to, first of all, name his book The Meaning of Shakespeare. Now, that last part of it, I think you'll see is sort of echo into the ideas that we looked at when we thought about Dr. Faustus, in that sense that there are feminine qualities and masculine qualities in the associations we make, positive or negative, with those. All right, so here's what I want you to do in this particular paper. Goddard identifies Cordelia as the character who best represents this kind of redemptive character, so in King Lear. So in one paragraph, test Goddard's thesis that Cordelia represents a particularly feminine capacity for pure and sincere love. How does she refuse to bend the knee to her father in Act 1, and what does she eventually give to her father in Act 4? Can we really accept that Cordelia achieves a spiritual triumph in this play? That is, given her journey through this play, can we call this a spiritual triumph? In the second paragraph, I want you to address this question. What is the cause of Goneril's and Regan's spiritual disaster? How is their refusal to bow the knee to their father's demands in Act 2 different from Cordelia's actions in Act 1? I think this is really an important question. We seem to praise Cordelia for what she does in Act 1, but when Goneril and Regan try to do a similar thing in Act 2, well, they become seen as kind of heartless monsters. Is their fate, as the play develops, the result of a distinctly feminine weakness, which I think the play sort of suggests, or is it the denial of femininity in favor of embracing the force and authority, to use Goddard's term, that is characteristic of masculinity? So that's the way I want you to kind of frame that second paragraph, is dealing with these specific questions. So again, 2 paragraphs. I think each of them somewhere in the neighborhood of 200, 250 words, so you should easily get to 500 words for the total paper. Be sure to include a works cited page. That is part of the rubric. MLA style does not work without a works cited page. Double space, indent, 12-point Times New Roman, all the niceties of this. I've given a couple of examples here of how to cite verse. And I think in this particular case, unlike Twelfth Night, the characters you'll be quoting speak almost entirely in verse. That seems to be what Cordelia and Lear do anyway. And here's how you cite the play from from the textbook. All right, thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing what you come up with.